All right, well, it's winter in Montana, I guess. Got some snow. I'm gonna go over sanding these corners real quick here. These are basically, you know, we got all of our markings on the end here. Yeah, these are already rounded over from, you know, pre-production, but we're gonna use just a grinder like this with a sanding disc, you know, grind, or like this is like a flap disc, or, you know, fairly coarse, and we'll just take it and kind of hit that. So you can see there that really brightens up the corner, gets rid of the letter there, and it's nice and shiny. So we'll do that to all the corners. We'll do it to the end. We'll also just round over all of our purlin ends a little bit as well with the grinder. But that's something we can do at any point after the logs are up and get those looking nice. All right, we've got our window installed now, and we're ready for trim. But we're gonna, before we put the trim on, we're gonna use up some of our foam. This is like a 2-inch by 3-inch, just a squishy foam, and we're gonna put it into our settling gap on top here. It'll basically just obviously seal that off, insulation, keeps wind out, and then as this log settles down here, it'll compress this as much as it needs to, and this is, you can either turn it sideways or vertically if you have a bigger gap. You know, you can use it like that to fill up a larger space. This is about the right size for this. And we're a little bit short because these are 4-foot pieces, I think. We'll just push it in. Make sure we're nice and tight on the end. Try to keep the wrinkles out of it, kinks out of it, and nice and straight. Make sure it's past, you know, inside of the frame so it doesn't mess with our trim. Now we have a little piece on the end here we need to fill in. 2-inch gap there, so I'll just get a little measurement, you know, 2 inches. We'll just cut a 2-inch square. This is actually 2 inches wide this way, so I'll just cut a little piece with a knife. Make sure it's nice and joined up with the other piece there. It's sealed off, and this stuff is really good. It's very, I mean, just flexible, and it'll really seal up any kind of imperfections you might have, you know, cuts or things like that. So now we can put our trim on around the outside here, and we're going to use the same material that we have up on the eave here. It's just the fascia board, which is, you know, 1 by 8 or 1 by 6, and we'll rip it down, and we'll basically put a bottom piece in here, side piece up here, and then do a double at the top. Okay, we've got our foam on top. This is our great stuff, window and door foam, and we're going to use this to go all the way around the window in our gap right there. So we'll just at the bottom, and I'll try to pull these out here. Just like that. Try not to get this on the window on the glass of the window. But there we go. So I'll seal that off. So now we've got foam on the top. We've got our foam around the perimeter. We have our foam gasket, you know, between the buck and the log. Down here we have a bead of silicone or you know, caulking underneath the frame down there, and then we have a bead on the outside on the bottom to keep water coming in. And we have the great stuff, gaps and cracks inside of our slot. So this is a very weatherproof window. And also we also have caulking around the flange of our window. So a lot of precautions. Make sure that there's a lot of different joinery points, so, points of contact, and we just make sure those are all sealed up with the right material. And so that's it for this. Basically, we'll do our trim. And that's the last step for the window on the outside, and then later on interior here we'll have trim covering this whole window. But perfect. Okay, all right, we're gonna start the trim. The first thing we're gonna do is put our piece on the bottom here. So we're gonna do the bottom first, then the sides, and then the top. So I'm just gonna get a measurement here. We're gonna go right inside against our log right there. So put my tape against there. Looks like we're gonna need about a 51 3/8. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a little piece of wood. I'm gonna write these measurements down. So 51 3/4 long. Sorry, 3/8, not 3/4. Okay, now we're gonna get a width here. This bottom should be consistently the same width. I'm gonna go 1 3/4 there. It's about 1/8 shy of what it's showing there, but see there, we're gonna be pretty tight. 1 3/4 will be nice and good there. So I'm just gonna get a piece of wood over here. I'll use some kind of leftover pieces of the fascia. Use up scraps as much as possible. So I will rip this down first, and then we'll cut it to length. So 1 3/4. Got it. Okay, there's our width. Then we'll cut it to length. 51 3/8. Sometimes these little wings on the corners here can hold up the wood, but I think that's gonna work. Okay, I'm gonna check something out here. It seems to be hitting in the middle here. There's a couple screws underneath here. Just this is all dependent on the window company, of course, but I'm hitting those screws. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mark that out. Just a kind of a rough spot there. Then I'll kind of chisel out a little spot here in the back. To account for those screws. So you actually could probably just use a knife. It's all hidden, of course, behind the wood, or behind the trim, yeah. Let's try that. I think that'll work. Yep, so sits all the way back. Now we're gonna screw this piece in. We're gonna just use some 2-inch screws. You could use 3-inch screws, but 2s should be good. 2.5s maybe. We'll just put maybe 4 screws and just kind of try to space them nice and evenly. We'll put one here. Don't want to go too close to the end with it. We want to stay back a little bit. So I'll go there, here, here, and here. So I'll grab a drill. All right, so I'm gonna put a screw right here. That's a terrible spot right there. like that. I'm gonna get a longer bit here. Nice bit like this is really handy. You get into some tighter spaces, you know, right here. You could use some finished screws if you want to, like some thinner screws, but it's exterior. You know, these screws hold a lot better than the small head finished screws. So I'd recommend just using these, and just make sure it sucks tight. That's our bottom piece. So we will now go with the sides. You have to kind of just decide how much time you want to spend getting these really tight. Because sometimes if your cut is not perfectly straight on your logs, you could have some wavy, you know, cuts. And so it just comes down to, you know, what you want it to look like. Here I'm going to probably get 2 measurements and see what they are. A lot of times it just seems like these are not always perfectly, you know, parallel, the cut and the window. You know, there's small variances in the way you cut or the level or the window. So a lot of times I'll measure at the bottom here, which we have 1 3/4 inch here, and then the top we have 2 inches. So I'm going to actually rip a piece at an angle from 1 3/4 inch to 2 inches. So right side, I'm going to go 2 inches on top, 1 3/4 inch on the bottom, and then for our length, we're going to go right against our bottom piece right there, and then we're going to go up. And I like to keep this a little bit longer than what it would seem, because you want this to be tight later on, and I'll show you. So I'm going to go 47 5/8, which is the top edge of this little corner here. So 47 5/8. We'll check this side. It should be the same. Yep. So 47 5/8. 2 of those, and then we'll do the right side first, and then we'll do the left side. Just in case we need that, we can come back to it. If it's long enough, let's see here. Should be. Yep. All right, let's trim it to the length. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a straight edge here. Since we're doing a taper cut here, I want to I'm gonna mark it out on the back side so we don't have a mark there that we can see. Top was 2 inches, bottom was 1 3/4 inch. So we're gonna go this side and go 2 inches at the top. Make a mark here. Actually, we'll go right here. And in the bottom, 1 3/4 inch. So I'm going to note too that you could very easily just cut this to 1 3/4 inch the whole way and be totally fine. And you know, it's just, if you want to get this picky with it, you can, but it's exterior, you know, so just decide how much time you want to spend on this type of thing. Move my fence out of the way. Okay, there we go. So the top is wider than the bottom here. Right off the bat, I'm hitting a little bit right here, a little bit tight there. Let's check the top. Looks like the top will fit. You don't want to force this in too hard because you could bend the window. It's actually, I think it might actually work. Yeah, it'll work. So this is pretty snug, which is good, but you don't want it any tighter than that. And I'll just tap it down. There we go. That piece is actually good to go. That's about as good as you can get right there, which is tight along the logs and tight along the window, and that's like I said, about as good as you can get it. Don't expect them to all look like that, but so before we screw that in, we'll put the other side in, or we'll cut this side now. We'll check it, and it looks like we have 2 inches on the bottom, and I'm gonna go 1 7/8 inches. I think that will fit the whole way. 1 7/8 inches, just a single rip. So I'm gonna just set my fence to that. Make sure to cut off the crooked side that I freehanded earlier. Okay. All right. Okay, let's try this out here. Pretty snug. There you can see this piece is not quite as tight, and you can see this little gap there, a little gap here. And that's acceptable for me, for an exterior trim. That's fine. You could do a tapered cut here. Sometimes if the logs are crooked, you might have some gaps, and if you want to get really crazy, you can scribe it in. And but again, exterior, this is totally good for what we're looking for. So I'm gonna screw these in. Probably do about 4 screws as well. I'm gonna try to space them out. Just a nice pattern here. Let's try to match the same spots, roughly. Well, there's our sides. So we got bottom sides. Now we're doing the top. 51 and a quarter is gonna have to do there. Now this top piece is a little bit unique. We're gonna do a 2-piece top piece basically, and we're gonna get a measurement from the top of our right against the top here of our log, and down to the top of our trim, which is 4 inches. So we want basically we're gonna put a piece in here, and then we're gonna put a piece on top of it that overlaps, and we want to have that total. So if it's 4 inches, we want to maybe have 2 pieces that are 2 1/4, so that we have a 1/4 inch of overlap on our pieces, if that makes sense. So we'll make 2 pieces at 2 1/4. We'll go off this side. All right, we'll cut these to length now. This piece is too short. This one will work though. We'll use that piece later on. Okay, all right, we've got our 2 pieces here, and I need to get a ladder. All right, so our first piece just lays on top like that, which is pretty straightforward. I'm gonna screw it in. I'll keep our screws towards the bottom of this edge. Sometimes it likes to tip back, so we'll put it in, then we'll reverse it out a little bit just to keep it tight on the end here. Kind of a pain sometimes. Do one in the middle. Pretty good. A little teeny gap there, but now the next piece is going to go on top of this and butt up against this ledge. Now in this case we have pretty small ledge there, so it might be a little bit tricky to get this piece to sit how we want it. So it is making contact on that end and right here. And we basically want to attach this piece to this log, and it's a lot easier if there's a wider ledge here to basically screw this up into. So we might have to get a little bit creative here with this piece and put some screws at an angle through here up into this log to hold it where it needs to be. But we'll make it work. So we want to use some longer screws for this, some 3 inchers, or probably what we need here. The other thing we probably want to do is actually pre-drill some holes. This stuff can tend to split if we're driving screws through it at an end, you know, through the edge grain like that, you can split this board apart. So we're gonna get just a drill bit to pre-drill some stuff, to pre-drill this top before we screw it in. So we'll do that. Got a little bit here. We're gonna pre-drill our piece. We're gonna go here at the end. So we're gonna put one right here, angled back, about right here. A little bit on the small side. Our bit here. I'm gonna do one in the middle, kind of the same thing. And then one on the other end here. All right, that should do it. These are actually 4 inches, I think. But let's get them started. Okay, all right. We don't want this to be tipped back like this. We want it to be nice and level. And should be able to achieve that here. Okay, that's pretty good. That'll work. This is a bit of not an ideal situation with the top here. Usually there's a little wider ledge and a little more purchase on that top, but that's good there. Got our set. The purpose of this double trim is so that this top, there's a gap behind it there still, right? And so as this log settles down, this trim piece can slide down over past this piece here. If we were to put a tight piece of trim in there that goes, you know, if this piece went all the way up against this log, and then we would have an issue because it would crush that piece of trim and smash the window. Who knows? It could be bad. So it's trimmed out. It is sealed up. It's ready for interior trim. We'll still have to peel these stickers off here. This is now ready for, you know, stain outside. Here we got our fascia on. Still got to go install the rest of our windows, but there we have it. Okay, we're gonna continue cutting these windows out. I went over how to cut these out with a guide, and that's a good way to just eliminate potential problems. But we can do the same thing by hand, freehanding. You know, there's not a lot of room for error. So out here I'm using a laser here. This is just a laser level, and that's nice. It keeps a nice straight line. You can just, of course, just mark this with a level and make pencil lines. But I'm going to show you kind of just how to do this with a freehand. I want to try to keep this saw as square as possible with the wall, so we're not tilting left and right. And so I'm going to go down and make a score cut first, all the way down, and then I'll do another pass and go all the way through. So. All right, now we're gonna go all the way through. I think the cold is really sucking the life out of this saw. So there we go. You know, we got a nice line. I got a little bit of a but it's good. Better bottom. It's really easy to dip down right there on the end. So make sure we're not dipping in there. So I mean, there we go. That's a freehand cut, and we achieve the same result if you can cut straight. There we go. We're gonna cut the rest of these windows out.